Putin right now is facing the most important and significant decision in his life, and if he does not play it right, it can very well potentially end his political career. This is related to the armed rebellion which happened last weekend, and today we'll also talk about this offer you cannot refuse that Lukashenko gave to Wagner leader Evgeny Prigozhin. But more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. And let's get straight to the point and talk about some ridiculous Russian propaganda. So, one of the notorious representatives of the Russian authorities, Vyacheslav Volodin, he said that those people who left Russia during these past weekend events, the armed rebellion, these people should be checked and possibly prosecuted. According to him, these people are traitors because at the very first sign of danger, what they do is they leave the country. Probably he forgot that Putin's entire inner circle, and probably he himself, they did exactly the same when Wagner was marching towards Moscow, but in his understanding, it only applies to regular people. And I mean, yes, so you stay in Russia, you are in danger. You can be literally stopped on the street, checked your documents, and be sent to Ukraine. If you leave Russia, you are now also apparently in danger, because you are the traitor and you can be sent to jail just for trying to protect your own life. So just let me know in the comments what would you do in this situation. Or maybe, how about this crazy idea? What if the Russian government does not interfere with the people's lives and let them decide for themselves what they want to do in case there is some kind of danger and uncertainty? No, this sounds like a crazy idea if we're talking about the Russian government. But if you don't think it's crazy and you think that this is exactly how it's supposed to be, can you please like this video and subscribe to my channel to see how many of us are more straightforward thinking than Russian authorities. You can also follow me on Instagram, because I started making daily posts about my Italian trip. The link is down below. But so yes, speaking about this short-lived armed revolution of the last weekend, please allow me to summarize you some very important statements that Putin made. Then we're gonna talk about what Lukashenko said to leader of Wagner Evgeny Prigozhin, which type of order you cannot refuse he gave him to stop him from advancing towards Moscow, and how all of this led to Putin's biggest dilemma and the biggest decision in his life. So pretty much yes, at the day when this coup started, Putin made an emergency broadcast calling this a backstab and saying that traitors will be never forgiven. He then said that people will be united among the strong leader of Russia and they will need to protect his power. And then yesterday Putin made another emergency broadcast which was characterized by Peskov as life-changing, which later turned out to be a fake news. Hopefully, or maybe not, we'll see. And in this broadcast, Putin said that it was not a single doubt that this coup will be terminated, that all these traitors will realize they are wrong, they will turn around, and Russia will prevail. He obviously never called Evgeny Prigozhin by his name, and he only mentioned Wagner like a couple of times, calling them real patriots of Russia because they did not join this coup and they were fighting in Ukraine. And pretty much that's pretty much it. There was no significant announcements. But then there was a second part with the Putin's inner circle, the most influential man in Russia. And the most interesting part of this meeting is that this was one of the very first public appearances of the Minister of Defense of Russia, maybe not anymore, Sergei Shoigu, and he was sitting in the business suit, no longer in the military uniform. One of the main topics of this conversation was also defeating this armed rebellion. He thanked those people for their impact. I don't know what they did, probably just left Moscow together with Putin, but he thanked them for their impact. And then, when you thought that this was already enough, Putin went ahead to Kremlin to speak in front of some other military representatives to just say exactly the same. He just once again congratulated and thanked every single Russian soldier for stopping these traitors. He said that the people of Russia united around the Ministry of Defense of Russia and not Wagner group. But if you remember videos from Rostov, locals were actually shaking hands and giving food and water to Wagner. They were definitely on their side. But, I mean, this is what Putin said. I guess he lives in his own world, or somebody who brings him the news is very afraid of telling something bad. And then he also briefly mentioned some losses of Ukrainians in this war. Specifically, he mentioned that since the beginning of this so-called Ukrainian counteroffensive, as he called it, Ukrainians lost 259 tanks and 780 armored vehicles. I mean, at this point, Ukraine must have tens of thousands of them. But wait. There is more. We have this Rosgvardia, which is basically, I don't know, civilian forces, civilian soldiers protecting the order within the country, called Rosgvardia. And its leader, Viktor Zolotov, he also made his statement, and he said exactly the same things as Putin, that these traitors were pretty much doomed to fail since the very beginning. He thanked the Russian soldiers for stopping them, and he said that the unity among people was never as high as it is right now. He then also made a very interesting statement that whenever this mutiny started, he gave all of his cash reserves, which are most likely bribes, to his wife in case he does not return. I mean, does not return from where? If he's gonna escape Moscow and then flight back is gonna get delayed, I don't know, because most certainly he was never been on the front lines. So he said this, and even people of Russia now consider him a big clown. And by the way, speaking about this armed revolution, if you still haven't seen some of its photos and videos, I have more than 300 of them on my Patreon. The link is down below and there's still 1 week of free access. But so yes, now let's go to Belarus, to its president Alexander Lukashenko, who somehow miraculously stopped this armed revolution, because he allegedly gave Wagner an offer they couldn't refuse. And eventually, as we talk about it, you will see how it leads to Putin's biggest dilemma and the biggest, most significant decision in his political career. So yes, originally yesterday, whenever Putin was making his address to the nation, President of Belarus Alexander Lukashenko was also supposed to have his own statement at the very same time. And just 5 minutes before that, he said that he delays it until tomorrow, which is today. And this is what he said. One of the very first statements that he made is that Russia is the peacekeeper and the protector of everything. And in case Russia ceases to exist, everyone else will also be terminated. Speaking about this armed revolution, he said that yes, it was doomed to fail since the very beginning, because there are no reasons to overthrow the current government of Russia. That is why they failed. But nevertheless, Lukashenko said that he was always prepared to any war military activities. He was doing this for the past 30 years, even though people were calling him crazy, saying like, stop thinking about war, start thinking about your own country. And then he said, now look at me, because I was thinking about any possible scenarios, I was able to react appropriately and stop war in another country with just one simple phone call. And I mean, yes, probably the phone call was not simple, because after all, Lukashenko said it lasted for approximately 30 minutes and was like 90% of swearing from both sides. But eventually Lukashenko gave Prigozhin the offer he couldn't refuse. And according to him, this offer was to prevent the bloodshed from both sides, from Russian soldiers and from Wagner soldiers. He basically told Prigozhin that if you keep walking towards Moscow, you will have to be crushed like an insect. This is almost literally exactly his quote. He said that if you don't remember that every single revolution in Russia eventually ended in total defeat of those who started the revolution. Apparently he does not know much of Russian history by saying this. And then basically that he said that, okay, Evgeny Prigozhin, if you want, just keep going towards Moscow and see what happens. Or You can lay down your arms, turn around, you will be promised safety to you and to your soldiers, and everything will get magically back to normal. Apparently, Lukashenko was so persuasive that according to, for now, Russian media, Prigozhin even denied his requirements to remove Shoigu and Gerasimov from their top positions within the Ministry of Defense of Russia. But, according to now Western sources, maybe, just maybe this agreement was actually made. Just Putin does not want to remove Shoigu and Gerasimov from their positions right now, because otherwise it will look a little bit too suspicious. It will look like that Prigozhin is more influential than Putin. And at the same time, Lukashenko said that yes, Wagner soldiers and specifically Prigozhin himself, they do have a sanctuary in Belarus. They will not be touched in this country. Because after all, another reason why Lukashenko wants them there so much is so that Wagner soldiers will share their military experience with Belarus military representatives, because they have this direct exposure to combat activities in Ukraine several months ago. And ultimately, this morning Evgeny Prigozhin's plane, according to this website, it did land in Belarus, and later Lukashenko also confirmed that yes, the leader of Wagner is already in the country. We then even had indirect confirmation from the Ukrainian side, Ukrainian military representative Serhiy Chryvatyi, who said that at this very moment not a single Wagner soldier is no longer spotted inside, outside or around Bakhmut. And if you remember, Wagner was the most significant combat force of Russians in this city, so now they are non-existent there, so the defenses are much weaker. But we will talk about the update from the east very soon. Now, let's switch towards Putin's dilemma. So yes, this last Saturday, Putin said that there is only one crime which is completely unforgivable for him, and this thing is treason. He completely cannot stand traitors. And now, 2 days later, he said that, yeah, don't worry, you turn around, you did a coup against me, there was an armed revolution possibility, you basically traited me and showed me your disloyalty, but that's okay. You can go to Belarus and everything is fine, I will forget about everything. You already see how suspicious it sounds. But the biggest dilemma that he has right now, like I mentioned already previously, is that Wagner soldiers are indeed pretty competitive soldiers in this Russian-Ukrainian war, and Putin simply needs them. But he cannot hold traitors so close to him in power, because look what happened. So yes, in his message he said that yeah, Wagner soldiers are heroes. They have been fighting alongside with us Russians, so we love them. They're honorable. They're very good people, so we really need them. And I will forgive you betraying me. Once again, the very last thing Putin will ever forgive. And then he said that, yeah, you betrayed me once, but in return I give you the opportunity to serve in my military. Next to my trusted generals, we will give you some weapons, and yeah, everything will be back to normal. Even Prigozhin himself, whenever he saw this temporary opportunity of partial, I guess, weakness of Putin, that Prigozhin basically said that no, the goal of this rebellion was never to overthrow the government. This was just a march of justice, to show that we are unsatisfied. So pretty much Prigozhin downplayed his, I don't know, involvement maybe in this conflict, and just definitely downplayed the ultimate goals. And Putin, at least on paper, he forgave Prigozhin and his Wagner private military company. But what does it tell Prigozhin? It tells him that if he makes a big mistake, but if he shows that he is powerful enough, Putin will most likely not be able to have an appropriate response, because Prigozhin also perfectly realizes that he once again needs his Wagner soldiers in case he wants to be successful in Ukraine. So for Putin, it is either between losing in Ukraine or having extreme difficulties, having to always announce another partial mobilization, or just to bite on his pride, if he has any, and just forgive Prigozhin. And this is his dilemma. If he does not play it right, potentially this can be the end of his political career, and here is why. Once again, Prigozhin realizes that probably there will be no consequences for his actions in the future, and maybe yes, right now everything is at peace, no one is having a grudge against each other. Probably Prigozhin will not be close to open windows for the next couple of months, or he'll be very careful what he's eating or drinking. But eventually this will all go down to the background, and Prigozhin will start thinking again. What if? What if I do this? What if I do that? And then in case something goes south, I can just say, no, it's okay, I didn't mean it. Like, I'll go to Belarus. But that time, Prigozhin will be much more prepared. He already saw the absence of capabilities of Russian internal forces to protect even the capital of Russia, Moscow, so he was really close to entering this city. So next time he will take into consideration all these past experiences. And also the next time he might have much more support from some other military units. First of all, obviously the ones who are the opposition forces to Putin and Russian army. But okay, and now as promised, let me give you an extremely quick update from the east. And first of all, as we go to Donetsk front lines, the president of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, he visited the forces which are very close to points of contact, he spoke with them, he even drank tea with them out of just a regular paper cup. And then he went almost to the actual front lines, met with the people who are fighting around Bakhmut and gave them some awards and medals. Then we have the report by the Institute for the Study of War, which claims that Russians were trying to attack next to Svatove and to the south of Crimea with no success, and then Ukrainians had partial success a little bit to the south of Bakhmut. And if we take a look at this map, which shows us the changes in territorial control over the last 24 hours, we can see that Ukrainians were able to advance a little bit to the west of Klishchiivka. At the same time, we have this video from the eastern front lines where a Ukrainian sniper is striking 2 Russian soldiers from the diversion/reconnaissance group, and he basically, as you would imagine, eliminated them. YouTube does not allow to show me this for obvious reasons, that is why you can find it as always on my Patreon, the link is down below. Going a little bit to the south, to Zaporozhye region, we have this video right here where Ukrainians were able to successfully destroy a Russian air defense system called Buk. And according to the representative of Ukrainian military, Valery Shershin, Ukrainians were able to advance approximately 1.5 kilometers closer to Melitopol, approximately eliminated a little bit more than 100 Russian soldiers and wounded a couple of hundred of them. And just overall, a total of 6 concentration of Russian forces and 10 artillery units of Russians has been destroyed by Ukrainians in the last 24 hours. And ultimately, what is the response by Russians? Well, you already know the notorious city of Mariupol, and Russians started, or even continue to demolish some residential buildings where allegedly some people were still living, and they said to them that these buildings, they need to be demolished because they need to be reconstructed. But according to some locals, these buildings were in relatively still good condition. And so yes, I don't know about you, but it honestly feels like that Ukraine is preparing something massive, something really unexpected. Right now it definitely feels like the calm before the storm. I do think that some significant events might happen by the end of this week, and if you don't want to miss them, just please consider subscribing to my channel. It only takes 1 click. The absolutely best way to support my work is through my Patreon. You can also become my channel member or simply use a PayPal link. Everything can be found to the right and down below. Thank you so much for attention, товарищи. Be careful, there are scammers in the comments, and see you tomorrow.